make that happen. Bonding is not very common to school districts, and so the original bonding request that went in last year, which was a typical bonding year, was to the city, and that could end up where things still go. They're still interested in supporting the project the way that they have in the past. So those two, and then 3, funding. I know this is something that most of the associations that I've seen are supporting. School Board Association, Superintendent Association, Minnesota Rural Education Association. I think admin might be even in the same place with what they're asking for on the basic formula 5 and 5. Is that what admin is?
Nope, I think the last time I looked, I think it was 6.
Okay.
And something else.
Okay.
But, yeah.
So obviously it's a number that we haven't seen in a while, but our state's also in a position we haven't seen in a while. The governor came out last week with his proposed education budget and or his requests, and he's looking at 4%, 2%. And one of the key things about his request or his position is to link the formula to inflation, which is a significant change and would be really, really beneficial to school districts. I stated or used some data from last year. I think Kara might even have some updated information about fiscal 23. But last year, if inflation would have been a part of the formula, it would have resulted in $2.4 million in additional revenue for the school district. So that had a huge impact. That change in 2003 had a huge impact on school districts and had a huge impact on ISD 318. So it'd be great to get that back where it was. The second bullet is something that I know a lot of associations are talking about as well, and that's the special education cross subsidy. Again, that has to do with the requirement for school districts to educate all students, which we're grateful and proud to do. But the same law that required that also created some obligation on the part of the federal government that they have not met. And for our school district, that gap in funding between what was promised and what was given to school districts for ISD 318 is well over $2 million, probably close to $3 million now per year. So again, you look at these two, just these two things together. We're talking about a number that's probably over $5 million, just these two funding items. If we were paid the same way we were paid in 2003, or if the federal government had kept its obligation, our district would be in a much, much better position. So that's another item on our, what I'm bringing forward. School safety is something was on our list last year. It's on our list this year. I continue to say this should be a layup for legislators to get done. This is an easy one. I included on the request what I'm seeing from our associations, and I think that would be a significant help to our school district, and that's just to increase the Safe Schools revenue cap to $100 per pupil. For our district, and we just have to go back to last April to remember the challenge that the insufficient funding for this created, where as a school district, we were in a position, or as a board, you were in a position between making decisions between SROs and other school staff, which one to cut. And that's a position that I don't think school boards should be in. I don't think school safety is something that we should be, nickel and diming. And right now, the way our funding is set up, it's being nickel and dimed. This particular type of school funding, and I've shared this with our partners at admin too, because I think this is, again, one of those things that should have unilateral support. These types of funds are valuable because they're flexible. They can be used on people. They can be used on cameras. They can be used on SROs. They can be used on curriculum. They can be used in a lot of different ways. So that's something that I've listed for your consideration. And then a fifth one that I've listed, and this is challenging to talk about because it's complicated, but there is a ton of energy in the legislature right now around funding free lunch and free breakfast for children. And I'll be the first one to say that I think the kids shouldn't have to worry about food when they come to school. And I'll also add that when kids are fed, they're going to learn better when they have full stomachs. The challenge that we've seen firsthand, and that I think all districts saw firsthand during the pandemic when lunches and breakfasts were free, is that we saw the percentage of free and reduced forms filled out go way, way down. And as a consequence, districts like ours saw millions and millions of lost revenue because those revenue dollars are tied to our free and reduced percentage. And so it's not really complicated to think about how when an incentive like free lunch or free breakfast for your child is removed, that the likelihood of filling that form out goes down. That makes sense. So I think one of the things we're going to want to make sure our legislators understand, and I've communicated with a couple of associations and legislators about this, they have to make sure that if they're advocating or supporting free lunch, free breakfast, that they're also considering the impact that has on lost revenue and making sure that that doesn't happen. And compensatory is just one. There are all kinds of funding streams that hitch themselves to that free reduced percentage. Title dollars are hitched to that free reduced percentage. And so we have to make sure we don't lose those other dollars because we're counting on them to support kids in lots of other ways. So I don't know, Kara, if you want to add anything to that.
No, that was a really good summary.
Okay. Any questions on these or things that we should keep talking about or add maybe to the list? Another bill that we're paying attention to, or I'm paying attention to, is a bill to increase funding for student support personnel. So that would be counselors, mental health, could be ESPs in specific roles. And so that's something I think that is an important bill to watch too. Certainly districts like ours added staff with funds through COVID or through the American Rescue Plan, and being able to keep those people would be really important, or have funding to keep those people would be really important. So another bill to watch.
Mr. Chair, Matt, and I don't know if I have this correct, and when it comes to the meal bit, but it just sounds like there was money. The proposal from the governor was just proposing money for this biennium, nothing beyond that again. So my concern is if they propose it and it passes and they give us money, what happens if there's no money appropriated 2 years from now? Now we're back on the hook for doing that if there's no state money there. Again, not saying it's not a good idea, but tied to the fact on the concerns that you laid out, we could really be in a pickle if we don't pay attention to that.
And people get out of the habit of filling out the forms. Our staff, our principals, our parent groups did an unbelievable job of getting forms filled out this year. Unprecedented number of forms filled out this year. I think it's fair to say the most that have ever been filled out in ISD 318. Our free reduced lunch percentage is as high now as it's been as far as I could see back. And that's because of the work that went into that. And we have a number of buildings that had over 90% of their parents complete the forms. So that is going to have a significant impact on our compensatory revenue. And so big kudos and thanks to all the staff that got involved in that. I know it was all staff, teachers, ESPs, cooks, everybody saying, hey, parents, can you make sure and do this? But people also get in the habit of those things. They get in the habit of filling out those forms. And there's a reason why they're called educational benefits forms too. It's not just about free reduced lunch. There's so many things tied to that. So I want to make sure that whatever system gets put in place, that it doesn't disrupt that habit now that I'm hoping that we're creating, that filling out that form just is a normal part of going back to school in the fall.
Kara?
And I just wanted to say that the federal government right now is strongly looking at paying for universal breakfast and lunches. And that's what happened during COVID. And the state actually didn't have to pay for lunches and breakfast at all. I shouldn't say at all. They paid a very minimum amount the past 2 years. So that's part of the budget surplus buildup. But the federal government gave us a very significant increase in our refunds or our reimbursements on those meals. So our food service fund last year doubled its fund balance. And unfortunately, we can't touch any of that for education, but it would be beautiful if the federal government made their decision first, and then the state could take that money and apply it to education elsewhere. So just something else to keep on your radar.
Thanks.
Mr. Chair, where's our free and reduced? What are we at, 43? So,
No, I
Where's it
believe it's
higher?
over 50%.
no?
Is that what it was?
I thought it was 43.
You know my memory.
Pardon?
I thought it was 43.
From what I heard from parents filling that out is the incentive that was developed by the activities group who said, hey, if we give, that's what incentivized parents to fill that out.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the nugget, and it didn't cost us a ton of money, but the nugget was their kid gets to go to football game or whatever. And that was a huge factor in people filling that out. And I think even if we go to this, I think having them fill that out and keeping that going and letting kids come to activities, it's like teachers, having them come to our activities and giving them stuff. I mean, I think it just says a whole lot about how we value kids, families, in the community. I think that was a good, whoever thought of that, and I know Ann and some others all went, well, it was a group, but that was a really good
That's a
thing.
good idea. And districts have tried a million different things.
And that seems to work.
That worked here this year.
Not to mention, it's good to get the kids out to those activities.
Well,
Yeah.
it's like multiple wins in that case, because it's good for our students to be performing and playing in front of more people. It just makes that a more enjoyable experience. And so I think it's like all these wins all at once.
Kara, you look like you have a number popping up.
Well, it is 43%, of course, you're right. But I wanted to say, even with awarding these, or giving the kids the free passes, our revenue has not decreased at all in our sporting event admissions. So, I don't know if it's parents bringing their kids or what it is, but we have not seen a decrease in the revenue. So that's awesome.
It's great. Nice.
There-
I have
Go-
a question,
go
to Mr.
ahead.
Chair. On the safe schools bit, what did Governor Walz propose? Does he have an increase there, or how did he?
I don't remember seeing that in his proposal.
Okay.
See anything. There's usually at least one bill just on school safety
Mhm.
every year. They never pass anything, but there's usually a bill.
And the reason why it seems like it should be, I mean, there's a variety of reasons. If just school safety in itself should be enough of a reason why it should matter. But it is entirely puts that decision in the school board's hands about what that local community values related to school safety. This isn't like a giant impact to the state budget. So it's just really confusing why this one even, I don't know.
What's hard, and when we met with the PD last year, is too, they're government funded too. So they're in the same situation we are. So as their contracts increase, our funding
Right.
for that did not. So while we were able to cover 10 years ago, the increases in their pay and contracts, we weren't able to stay up with.
Right.
And so it was like, well, people were like, well, don't use safe schools funding. And I'm like, we do, but most rural schools have one. We have two. We could have more, but that they're in the same boat. They're looking to taxpayers to help fill the gap. We're looking to taxpayers to help fill the gap. We're in the same situation, which is sad.
Plus it comes out of our general education dollars to
Yeah,
make that difference,
to make
right?
that difference.
And I think there was an increase, Ben, you might remember way back, but it was $35 for a long time, then it went to 38. I mean, in my career as a administrator, I think that's all we've seen as far as a change. There was one year where there was a bunch of grant dollars that were attached to that right after a school shooting, surprise, surprise. And those were given out really
One-time
Indiscriminate.
money, I think. wasn't it?
One-time money, and districts were assigned a lottery number essentially, and numbers were drawn out of a hat. Didn't matter how well your plan was laid out or how much of a need there was. It was an indiscriminate, pull numbers out of a hat approach. So it should be easy.
There any other items for the workshop? If not, we'll adjourn until the regular meeting at 6:30. Come to order.
Stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Julie, do I need to be checking for public input at this point?
You would, there's no one that has signed up.
Thank you. Thank you. Looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
So move.
Moved by
Second.
Pat, second by David. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have no items under highest student achievement. Under safe and welcoming learning environment, principals report. Cohasset Elementary, we have Jill Wheelock.
Okay, good evening, Superintendent Gross and Board. I have been waiting all day to come here, actually, to share this because when I was writing it up, I had so much to say and I thought, oh, how many minutes do I have for this? So it will be brief, but our school we're on the brink of amazingness. So I'm so excited to share all of what has been happening at Cohasset. We've been very busy. This month, we've completed our winter screening and fast bridge assessments in both math and reading. We take those 3 times a year. So we just finished up with our second round of that. We also do our teacher sabers, which is our SEL screener that the teachers complete on the students. Our PBIS, we've been having our team meetings and our school implementation is in full swing. After we've reviewed the data this month, we have been busy working on interventions with our students on behavior with our student support specialist. Some students receive a tier 2 behavior group or social skill group with our student support specialist. And we have some students that actually receive tier 3 with her. So they have more check-ins and more intervention time than just like 1 meeting a day. So we have worked on that and there'll be more data on that to show you coming up. We have been busy at early outs. In our BLL time, we've been focusing on our benchmark achievement level descriptors. We've been working on our test specs, and this is all with MCA testing. We've been looking at standards, K-5. Of course, we're always reviewing our student assessment data. And most recently, we've been working on our classroom walkthroughs and what those will look like. So we've been busy. First, PBIS. Our school store is a big hit. Every Friday, the kids shop, and we've been changing the rewards. Most recently, their favorite is a candlelight lunch. So students have lunch with me. I serve them. We have a tablecloth and fine china. So it's really fun for the kids. We also have air hockey. I have an air hockey table in my office. So kids like to come play air hockey with me or with a friend. They can get fidgets and pencils, lunch with other adults, a variety of things. So that's been a huge, huge hit. All of our staff, they're focusing on acknowledging positive behavior, and they're doing that through our online system that we're piloting this year. I have an admin intern, so Mr. Erickson has taken this project on, and it's been very successful. With that, our goal has always been that the kids hear consistent language across the school, and they receive consistent responses to their behavior when staff have to redirect. And with our new PBIS rewards and our store, it's really changed the mindset of our staff. They're always looking for positive behavior. And I don't know why, if it's on, because they can do it on their phone or their computer, it's easier, but it has completely transitioned. And it's been a very positive piece to our school. Parents also receive a communication when the kids get a point for being responsible, respectful, safe, and kind. And so we've upped that parent piece too, and they really like that. Along with PBIS, we always have a school-wide assembly. We actually have one tomorrow, if anybody wants to come at 2:20. They're very short. We have gold and ticket winners. They get an extra 100 points. So my candlelight lunches are going to up because those are 50 points. So I'm sure I'll have a slew of those tomorrow. We have staff winners. We actually acknowledge staff that have given out the most PBIS points this quarter. We always review the school-wide expectations, and we're teaching the kids our Thunderhawk school song. So when they get to middle school, high school, they should have that memorized. That one's a little rusty, so don't expect much on that one, but we're getting there. So with PBIS, I know this is small to see, but with that Sabre screener I said, where the teachers fill out different criteria on students and their social emotional learning, in the fall, we had 11.9% of students that flagged that maybe needed some sort of support in some facet. And in the winter, we're down a little bit. We're only at 9.2. So yes, it's a small change, but it's a huge improvement. And we were very excited to see that. Along with our PBIS implementation, when we were doing the grant, we had to do something called the SAS, and that was a survey. It's now optional because we're out of our grant cycle, but our staff has chosen to do it. So we just administered, our PBS team did this in January. And on the left, that is the status of how Cohasset Elementary, 13 teachers at Early Out took the survey. And 71% of the teachers agree that our PBIS efforts are in place school-wide, which is good. 25% say partially, and 4%, which is about possibly one individual, would think that it's not in place completely school-wide yet. And then on the right side, that's showing like, whoa, we need a huge school improvement. It's a priority to improve the school. 73% said that's a low priority, meaning that we do have things in place. Again, that 5% said that is a high priority, and medium was 22. So that's just sort of like broadly, how does our PBIS look in our school? This is gonna be really hard for you to see, but within there, teachers answered questions, and then I got the data back, and it shows on specific questions what the rating is. And so this one was really exciting to share. A small number, we have 3 to 5 positively and clearly stated expectations for students, and we have 100% of our 13 that took it agree with that, and 100% think that's a low priority because we have that in place. So that's a great starting point. A couple of other notes of celebration. Procedures are in place to address emergency and dangerous situations. 85% of those who took this survey says yes, it's in place, and 82% says it's a low priority. So that's another big win. A team exists for behavior support, planning, and problem solving. Again, 85% think it's in place, and 82% think that's a low priority because it's in place. School administrator is an active participant on the behavior support team, and we have 100% agree that that is happening. So all very exciting for that structural pieces for PBIS. Now our areas for growth, which we always have, which is a good thing. And this is very small. I wasn't able to get it bigger. Patterns of student behavior are reported to faculty, and there's active decision-making on a regular basis, like monthly. 69% agree with that. So we have some room to grow there. School has formal strategies for involving families about expected behaviors at school. Same thing, 69%. So again, we'd like to see that number a little higher. And then training for students has been developed and based on school data. It's more like behavior training, and that was at 31%. So there we probably need to do some more training with all staff. And then school includes formal opportunities for families to receive training on behavioral support, and that was at 27%. So our next meeting, our PBS team will look at this as our area of growth and what strategies will be put into place so these numbers can be higher when we take it again in the spring. But always good information. And now on to academics. We have been moving right along academically with math and reading. This is our kindergarten celebration. What's important to notice in this graph is oftentimes our students who are already at grade level or already meeting standards, it's hard to get them a lot higher, especially in younger grades. But if you look at the blue part, in the fall, we had 5% of our kindergarten students in both classes in reading that were exceeding. We now have 48%. So that is amazing. The green went down, but that's okay because some of those kids that were meeting went to now exceeding, which is a huge undertaking and task. So you look at that all together in reading, they're already well into the 90% proficiency, and it's only January. So we still have half a year to teach these kids. Same with grade 1, 5% were exceeding. Now they're at 22. You look at the proficiency, we're about going into 80%, and it's only January. So this is great foundation for the students. And this is kindergarten, or this is K and 1 in reading. We have further celebrations across every grade level. In second grade, and if you remember last time I talked, typical growth is 4 to 6%. In here, in A reading, we have a plus 17%, plus 6% overall as a grade. And on the fluency, another plus 17. So just lots of improvement. Same with in third grade, the numbers are fuzzy, but big things to look at. We're into plus 17. Another piece to note, when the bottom part, you look at the pink, we want to be getting rid of the pink is going smaller, and it is if you can look at the far right graph. And this is still in reading. Second and third grade, different assessments, plus 15%. We had a class go from 71% proficiency up to 86%. So another one, 43% to 65. So big jumps in just the first half of the school year. Math achievements. We also have math achievements. Fourth grade. As I'll talk about in a further slide, we have really been working on math automaticity as a school. And what that means is kids can know their facts quickly. They know their basic calculations and they can do it efficiently. So when they go to middle school and they are doing algebra, they understand that 9 times 7 is 63, for example. Something we noticed last year that we needed to grow in, right here in fourth grade, a classroom went from 38% in the fall to 62% proficiency. Plus 24% is huge. In the other classroom, plus 15%. That's huge growth. And same thing, fifth grade with automaticity, we had a class go from 37% to 70% proficiency in just this little bit. So what that means for us, areas for growth, we want to continue to increase our student math automaticity to 5, and same, so I'll talk about that first. As you noticed, I didn't show every classroom, so we have pockets of it. We talked about this today at a staff meeting we had, so we're going to learn from those teachers. We saw the data of some of the classrooms that are implementing those things. They're going to teach, and we're going to work together to collaborate so that we continue to improve that math automaticity, because we need that so the kids have the foundation for the rest of their math skills. Same with reading. We're going to continue to work on reading fluency. As you can see, huge celebrations, and we're going to work together to figure out what those teachers are doing. We have plans and we have time to collaborate, so that will be exciting. More to come next time I share. Does anybody have any questions for me? I know it was quick and it was a lot.
Jill, I think that data on math automaticity clarifies a narrative that sometimes we hear that, we don't teach math facts anymore, and not only are we teaching them specifically, but we're assessing how our kids are doing. So I think it's a good chance to sort of set the record straight on that too. And again, the idea, there have been a lot of schools of thought about whether that's necessary in the day and age of calculators and phones and stuff. But the reality is that if kids are spending cognitive load or cognitive energy on facts, they're not able to deploy that cognitive energy on problem solving, which is really where they need to be spending it. So good work, Jill.
Mr. Chair, I would extend congratulations. The reading and math scores at the elementary levels are absolutely astonishing. And you and your staff are to be congratulated and supported and held up as great examples of what we are doing, what we can be doing, what we should be doing, and mission accomplished. Thank you for that.
Thank you. They have been working very hard, yes. And it's very evident. So it feels good and it's exciting because they can see the fruits of their labor. Yeah.
Well done.
Any other questions?
I don't know if this is a question for you or a question for Matt or somebody else, but you're doing your leadership learning teams and learning from who's, what classrooms, where the pockets are and what are they doing and how can we implement that? Do we have a district-wide group looking at that same thing? So if Cohasset is doing really great in math, that information gets to East or West, or if West is doing really great in reading, does that information, is there some cross-pollination that's happening?
The short answer at this point is no, we don't. Clearly, I think we need to learn from our best,
Yeah,
our
I mean,
best
that's
and where
amazing.
we have proof of concept working. And I think Carol and I talked recently about when we have teachers in each other's rooms watching practice, I think that'll be a sign that we've really broken down some barriers and have a culture that we want. So we've got work to do there.
Yeah, I don't mean that
Yeah.
as a ding.
No,
It's
no,
just like I
it's
got
just-
kind of excited
Yeah.
when you shared all,
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing data. That's really
It
cool.
is.
Thank you. Nice job.
It is. And you can come visit anytime. We love visitors. We like to show,
2:20 tomorrow.
yes, for PBI, for
I'm coming for the
PBIS.
candlelight dinner.
But honestly, for any of the academic times, the teachers are very proud of their work, and and the ESP, everybody, and it takes everybody, and it's really it's really a cool thing. But there's been, yeah, our whole model of our schedule and just the collaboration and the hard work they need to be acknowledged. And so anytime you're welcome to come see the students hard at work.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Jill.
Okay.
Thanks,
thank
Jill.
you.
Under effective and efficient systems, we have several items. I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes of the January 9th organizational meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Melissa,
Second, David.
second by David. All in favor?
Hey,
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Looking for a motion to approve the December 2022 claims in the amount of $5,594,115.85.
So moved.
Moved by Ben,
Second, David.
second by David. All in favor?
hey.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to the consent agenda. Casey.
Thank you. Good evening, Board. Tonight on the consent agenda, we have Donald Ekholm, bus driver termination, Ariana Fox, ESP resignation, Pamela Francisco, teacher retirement. Pam will have served in the district for 38 years. Anna Johnson, community education, safe routes to school coordinator resignation. Lynette LaRock, teacher retirement. Lynette will have served for 32 years. Elizabeth Lau, teacher retirement. Elizabeth will have served for 23 years. And Brenda Perrialt, teacher retirement. Brenda will have served for 29 years. I just want to thank the 4 teachers for their combined 122 years of service. And I'm recommending approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Pat, second by Ben. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Casey. The next item on the agenda is to approve school board members' right to employment, and talking about Pat Maduri, who helps us out with sub-bus driving on a regular basis, and we're very thankful for that. Looking for a motion to approve that right to employment.
So moved.
Moved by Melissa,
Second, David.
second by David. And I believe we need a roll call for this, Julie.
Melissa Barr,
Yes.
David Marty,
Yes.
Ben Hawkins,
Yes.
Pat Maduri,
Yes.
Mindy Nuring,
Yes.
and Mark Jordan.
Yes. Motion passes.
With appreciation of that.
Thank you.
Yes.
We're looking at the school calendar for 23-24. Matt, do you want to talk to us about that?
Sure. I mentioned in a recent communication about the calendar that there's, I think, a initial assumption that there's all kinds of variability that exists when we look at this year to year, and we're kind of adopting structures. The calendar that you're looking at first gets looked at by the ISD schools together, and that has to do with some sharing that we do across districts. We're bounded by state law on the front end of school. We can't start before Labor Day. That's a state law. And in northern Minnesota, it's the prerogative of many that we preserve as much summer as we can. We did put this out for comment. It went to meet and confer. And based on some feedback that we got, we did make one small change to the winter break and moved the day to the Friday before Christmas. So took that feedback, made that change. Our calendar is in alignment with the other districts for the most part, with some exceptions that are mostly due to differences in our contracts. We have contracts that range from, on the teacher side, 180 days to 183 days, and so that shows up in various places. One of the places that we are different is conferences in November, and so that's a place where our parents, if we have parents in different communities or that might work in different and have their kids go to school in different communities where they might experience a difference. There was a lot of conversation in our collaboration meeting with Nashwauk-Keewatin about the calendar and about the school day or the high school schedule specifically. And certainly I think something to look into as we move forward and as ideas become more clear or fleshed out, what we might do as a collaborative. It's been over 15 years since the bell schedule that we have was developed, and the calendar probably very similar time frame. So it's worth looking at again to see if it still serves the needs of our communities, and make changes as need be. The other question that comes up often is around spring break, whether that be from staff or the community. And what we've learned over time is that there isn't really a great week to put it, first of all, that doesn't conflict with learning or activities. If it ends up being that there is a spring break scheduled, there hasn't been in a while now, if that doesn't work for people, they usually take their spring break whenever they want. And so we end up with multiple weeks off. And so it's a tough time to find a day that works or a week that works. And then what we inevitably find too is that the people that prefer that aren't really able to decide on what month or what they like. So we end up inevitably picking the wrong week. And it also means that our school year pushes into June. So if people are wondering why that's the case and why we don't have a spring break, that's why. Challenge that creates is we have a calendar that is pretty broken up in September, October, November, and December, even January. But then you get to February and March and April and May, and it gets to be a tough stretch for our staff in there. And so there's definitely some improvements that could be made with some thinking there. But this is where we've landed after that feedback and input, where the other districts are at, and I recommend approval.
Looking for a motion to approve the calendar.
So moved.
Moved by Mindy,
Second.
second by Melissa. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, before I forget, there has been some conversation in and among some levels of staff about conferences and possibly doing some things different there in the future. And I think there's really good reason to do that. And so certainly open to those conversations and what might come from doing things better there.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is approve the recommendation from the Fringe Benefit Committee. Matt, do you want to introduce that?
Sure thing, Mr. Chair. What you have in your packet, and the chair of the Fringe Benefit Committee is here as well, Dan Adams, but what you have in your packet is a letter directed to you from the Fringe Benefit Committee. And in it, it details a situational analysis that goes into the why that this letter has come to your attention. It speaks to a health insurance reserve fund that's decreased by almost $5 million over the past few years, 5 years, and through no fault of anyone, just the challenging healthcare dynamic that we are in, and the dynamic and how that plays off with the plan design that we have. So we have increasing healthcare costs, we have utilization changes, premiums that were lagging, and as a result, we saw really large increases to healthcare premiums in the last few years that have made our current plan unaffordable for some of our staff and really aren't sustainable. That led the Fringe Committee to do some digging into what options might exist. We have some members of that committee here, actually. What options might exist, knowing that a good health insurance plan is one that provides access to good care to all of its members. And so what came out of that investigation is what you'll see in the letter. It's broken down into two parts, really. The first section that details plan design summary. And this is where there's a little bit more, tightness to what the recommendation is, specifically a high deductible plan with the minimum deductible allowed by the IRS for an embedded deductible plan, currently $3,000 single, which would mean a $6,000 family deductible, and those rates change based on the IRS. Another notable thing is, provided that Health Partners is successful in obtaining the bid, that our network remains consistent, and if that isn't the case, that the closest possible network's in place. School districts in Minnesota are subject to the Health Insurance Transparency Act, which requires us to go out to bid every 2 years. This is a bid year for us, so among all the other changes we have going on, we will have to go out for bid this spring. Another factor in that plan design is employees who retire under the current plan will continue to remain on the current plan. So anybody, we have retirees on our list today, but anybody that retires, before the end of the school year will stay with the plan that they're retiring under. And we also see in here an alignment between the plan year with the district's fiscal year. So currently our plan year is October through September 30th. And this recommendation is to align that with our fiscal year, which will help with budgeting a great deal. The last plan design recommendation here is to align the flexible spending account plan year with the health insurance plan year. And currently our flexible spending account plan year is a calendar year. So this would take 3 years, essentially, our fiscal year, which is different, a health insurance year, which is different, flexible spending plan year is different, and put them into one. The committee also made some recommendations related to negotiations. So part of the challenge of this all is that there are some things that are related to a term and condition of employment, specifically around contributions. And so the committee also included some bullets in here that the board, that it's recommending that the board consider during negotiations. And so you can go through there. It details contributions to HSAs, how those are handled, when they're distributed. The other thing that it lays out in here is if we make this transition to an aligned plan year, how we would handle that. Again, suggestion there. There's a bullet as well about people that are retiring sort of while we're in this transition. So we have people that won't be retiring under the current plan, but they also won't be retiring in a years from now, and their HSA maybe would have had time to grow, and so there's a section in there to address that. One of the and this component again is about recommendations for the negotiations, something that we were just talking about today, and I think the board should consider this adjustment to this language in the motion. But if you look at the second page, about halfway down, it says an eligible retiree who qualifies for retiree health benefits and retires between the years of 2023 and 2028, et cetera. You would actually be more clear to strike out the words qualifies for retiree health benefits and. So it just would read an eligible retiree who retires between the years of 23 and 28. Again, that's the purpose of this section, is to recommend language around transitioning people into the plan. This would have to be negotiated, so it could get cleaned up there, but part of the benefit of cleaning it up now would be as we're communicating this out to our staff. If we had that language cleaned up, it might resolve some questions ahead of time. It also makes recommendations about how to handle contributions for married employees and fees and those kinds of things. So a lot in here. It recognizes and includes a lot of work, countless hours that went into this by many, many people, multiple extra meetings by our fringe benefit committee around something that's very, very challenging. Our plan that we currently have is wonderful. I think we'd all prefer to keep it. It's just not a plan that works in today's healthcare environment, and it's not the data that we have about with our insurance plan and our insurance fund indicate that it's not sustainable in our system anymore either. So this comes from that fringe benefit committee with approval. It was passed 10-2 last Thursday, and I guess I'd invite Fringe Benefit Committee Chair Dan Adams to weigh in if it pleases the board. If there's anything else you'd like to add.
So I guess a few comments for me is just a big shout out to all the units that have been present throughout this and contributing to try to find a solution to obviously these financial insurance concerns. A special shout out to Jim Sherping and Katie Thungshell that took time out of their days to go out and present and educate us during the workshop day. That was a big ask, and they did an amazing job. So again, big thanks to Jim and Katie. Obviously, our consultant, George Vanderwait, has been, we got so many people at the table, the expertise, whether it's Kara or George or Carol on behalf of the biggest unit, just to answer some of those questions, because this is painstakingly slow and a long process. And if we didn't have people at the table to answer the questions, it would be, we'll have to wait till next month. We have to wait till next month. So we're getting the great feedback, and it comes quick. Joe Sarar also from Edmund. And again, the committee's 13 people. It went 10-2 because I think everyone acknowledges the fact that something has to give. This is so expensive. We all love the Platinum Plan. I've been the recipient of it all my teaching career. So it's very difficult to have these discussions, but the bottom line is we have to look at the financial situation of the district, and 10-2 speaks volumes. We had one person that was absent on that day. I mean, we all acknowledge that we need to do something and hopefully take good care of all of us at the same time. So just a big thank you to everyone who's put their time and effort into this. It's been a long process. Questions from anybody?
Thank you, Dan. So at this point, I'm looking for a motion to approve the recommendation from the Fringe Benefit Committee regarding the changes to the health insurance plan design offered by ISD 318, and also to consider the committee's recommendations for the upcoming round of negotiations.
So moved.
Moved by Pat,
Second.
second by Melissa. Discussion?
Mr. Chair, I just want to echo Dan's comments. It has been painstaking. It's potentially a change here for the employees in the districts and the district as a whole. And I appreciate the work that went into this and the recommendation coming forward. It helps us as a board when we go into negotiations. And I think every bargaining unit that was at the table is there that's taking health insurance from the district. So I think that helps us as a board. And it's great that it's weighed in early. So when we get into the negotiations, we don't have to go through this same process on each individual contract or each individual group that has the health insurance. So it sets the table for us and for us to move forward. And this committee has been in existence a long time, long before I came on a school board, and they've given recommendations to the board. And so I appreciate the committee work and bringing those recommendations to the board. That's what committee work is for, and it helps the board guide where they go in the future from that committee work. So again, hats off to everybody on the committee and appreciate the work.
Mr. Chair, if I can, is there any concern on the part of the board in regards to removing that language in there when we communicate this out? Again, this whole section has to get negotiated anyway, so we're not, bound by that particularly, but it would clarify, I think, as we're communicating this out to our employees.
I think that's important.
No concern.
Mr. Chair, so Matt, what we're approving tonight, obviously, there's a change in what's on our computer screen here. How's that going to get fixed, and then how's that going to get pushed out after tonight's meeting?
I think the motion that's been made and seconded has been to approve what's actually written here. I think at this point, what we could do is when this gets communicated out, unless there's an amendment to the motion, is when we communicate this out to indicate that the board is agreeable to removing that phrase and simplifying that component.
Again, I think it's important, I brought this up at the committee, to make sure that we have the right document out, because there's been a lot of documents back and forth. Whether we get a date on this, whatever, as this is the final document that was approved, so that's clear to the employees that this is where we're at. This was a recommendation from the Fringe Benefit Committee, so they're not looking at draft 6 versus the final draft and thinking that draft 6 is the final draft. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that it's
That,
specifically clear.
was
this is
that
the final.
change made by the committee?
Striking that language, it was just brought to me. We had a discussion earlier today from members of the committee, but not the full committee.
I think the board should change the language so that we don't have to, it's gonna be the only version that's out there.
Mhm.
And so I think I'd like to have the
Rescind, yeah.
motion amended.
Yeah.
To reflect the committee change in the language and strike that.
Here's my only concern with that,
Mhm.
is we're approving what the 10-2 vote was from the committee. So to alter that committee's language feels like disingenuous to me, because that's not what we're bringing forward. It's just,
Yep.
that's my concern, because what we're approving now is what was approved by the committee, and by
I
changing
agree
that
what you're
language,
saying.
it's no longer, that's no longer true. That would just be my only concern.
We
I
could,
agree with you on that. I feel like that in trying to, I don't know how to explain it, but like trying to change something on there feels like kind of dishonest to the members of the committee, because it's like we're kind of changing stuff that they wanted to do and thought would be like a great idea from them. I don't know.
I think probably with respect to the committee, the cleanest way, since, to your point, Melissa, the entire committee didn't weigh in on that particular change. It might be the cleanest and most respectful of their work to approve it as presented, but identify when this is communicated out, that the board considered that and is agreeable to it. The striking that makes this more inclusive, not exclusive. So
Right.
there's no restriction being created here. It's actually making it less restrictive, but it might get messy since the entire committee didn't weigh in on a final version of this.
I'll withdraw.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chair, maybe offer another suggestion.
Go ahead.
Move forward and approve what we're doing. Send it back to the Fringe Benefit Committee. I know there's a meeting in February, and have them approve that small change on the document.
So that it.
And then
so
bring
it
that
gets-
forward to the board at our next board meeting,
Sure.
finalizing that, and
just
adopting that.
amend it. Yeah.
Yeah,
adopt the
amended document.
Sure.
So at this point, we want to go ahead and any further discussion on this before we vote?
No, just a huge thank you. This is a big move.
Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. We have a couple policy changes to talk about. Matt, policy 208, accept the second reading.
Yeah, so policy 208 has to do with the the policy process essentially. The policy was reviewed by the Policy Review Committee in December. Changes follow MSBA's recommendation. And so that comes with both my recommendation and the committee's.
Motion to approve.
So moved, David.
Second.
Second.
Second, Melissa. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Accept second reading and approve policy 416, drug and alcohol testing. Matt?
There was a variety of nuance added to this policy, some of it having to do with the inclusion of cannabis, some of it having to do with the types of tests that are performed, clarifying drugs or controlled substances, how we handle the observation or testing of suspicious activities, and again, been reviewed at length, I'd say, with the Policy Review Committees. It's our second reading, and I'd recommend approval.
Motion to approve.
So moved.
Mindy? Second.
Second.
Second by Ben. Discussion.
I think, Matt, this is in keeping with MSBA's legal review of all these policies. Is that correct?
Yes, good clarification.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Accept second reading and approve policy 515, protection and privacy of pupil records. Matt?
Again, you're considering a policy that's been reviewed by our committee. It's in line with MSBA's language. I'd say the overall changes here are minimal outside of grammar, syntax, some clarification around definitions. I'd recommend approval.
Motion to approve.
So moved, David.
David?
Second.
Second. Pat?
Yes.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to partnerships, board reports. Do you want to go first?
Oh, you looking at me?
Yeah.
I didn't know you guys were looking at me.
We're counting on you.
Well, there's nothing really new going on other than callbacks for the musical. I forgot what it was called. Were Friday. A couple of my friends are in that. There's a choir concert on the 26th, I think. I'm not completely sure on that. It's a Monday. I'm not sure which Monday though. And we have the second semester tomorrow, so that's going to be a little chaotic, but everything's just been pretty good, and with all the students, haven't heard any complaints. So yeah.
Halfway done. Other board reports?
I can go.
Melissa?
Well, we were at MSBA after our last board meeting. It was that week. I accidentally deleted my app, so I lost my notes, but I'll try and recall. We attended, some of us went to an early bird workshop on tools and skills for collaboration. So it was a good workshop, and correct me, Pat was in it. What was the name of the department? I had never heard of that department, from the Minnesota State Department of like Collaboration or something like that.
Office of Collaboration and Dispute Resolution.
Office, which is it's only like a couple years new, and they're here to help us. Like, we learned just that, knowing that there's an arm to reach to when we have issues. The other was we all went to the Reflective Leadership opening presentation. Wonderful. He was wonderful. He was engaging and really caused you to reflect on what assumptions you bring into the room for yourself and for others, and how to be reflective on those assumptions. It was powerful. And then 2 workshops that I remember I attended. One was book challenges and how the increase in book challenges is upping and some of the legalities around that. And in talking with Ryan DeBay, we have committees and everything in place and our policies are all current. So we are up on that, but I just wanted folks to know. And then the other was I went to a student representative group where some student reps from other school boards across the state did some presentations around how they engage with their boards. And so Lily, I'd love to visit with you after and see what your thoughts are. But
Didn't even know there was something like that.
right. And the other thing that they brought up, Lily, which might be of interest for you, is that they were thinking about bringing together student representatives at the next MSBA, like, because there's enough of you in the state now so that you guys can come and share your own ideas and have your own group of school board student representatives. So it was kind of a cool conversation that they had, and the 2 young women who presented there were very eloquent. One was from Nevis, right, just south of Pelican Rapids, and the other was from Metro Area School District, and both had very different experiences, but both were really good. So other than that, yeah, just kind of regular run-of-the-mill meetings for me.
Thank you.
I
Ben?
also attended, and I'll let somebody else talk.
I'd add a footnote. MSBA is the Minnesota School Board Association, and this board, every member of this board attended that, which is a real credit to the board, to the community, the dedication of the people at this table, taking this commitment very seriously. Very strong recommendations. I attended a negotiation workshop. They're just really great, powerful workshops. Information on unrequested leave of absence, which unfortunately, I wish it were not so, but we have been faced with that. We're looking at that. And some information about developing an operational levy and what communities have gone through across the state as they've had to face that. And it's likely that it's an area that we might have to face as well. Boys and Girls Club has met. We are still looking for a new community coordinator in Grand Rapids area. The endowment committee has met again. There was a great science fair at the middle school last week. It was just fascinating to see what the middle school students are coming up with, the research that they've done, the poise that they have in making these presentations, talking about hockey pucks. Do they go faster if it's on ice when they're freezing cold, or do they go faster when they're, and I know the answer to this, if they're warm or cold, but you should have been there. I'm not going to share. A lot of really great information. Tina Smith, Senator Tina Smith was in our community to present an earmark grant to the Boys and Girls Club to tie together their work with ISD 318. And she had very kind words to say about our community and about our partnership and about making a difference in kids' lives. And that was really powerful.
Well, I attended MSBA as well and went to some of the same workshops. One of them that I had attended was Building Excellent Career Technical Education Partnerships in Rural Communities, which was very interesting and something that I ask as the career pathways. So got some great ideas from that, which I'll be writing down in my notes. That's it.
I attended MSBA and just a couple of highlights there. When I attended was Anoka County Hennepin School District, where they went through the same, I don't want to use the word struggle, but struggle that with health insurance. They had a high option plan for us, platinum plan, and they went down to same type of plan that we're looking at here in the district. And they went through that growing pain as well. And they have, I forget how many employees, but I think maybe 3 or 4 times the number of employees that we have. And they shared the process that they went through and kind of the same process that we're following here in 318. So that was good to hear that and where they landed. And their health insurance is in a healthier spot today because of it. They realized that the plan that they had was not sustainable, so they had to do something. But they brought their employees into the mix and helped them solve that problem. So it was good to hear that we were on the same path and heading down the same road, and ultimately landed where we landed today with our health insurance. The other is a shared leadership. And I know some of us here, and Matt and part of his team presented down there at the State School Board Association conference for that and learned something through that. So just kudos to you, Matt, and your team that you brought down on that. And I think it was well received. I think there was 30, right around 30 or 32 people from other school districts that attended that presentation. So thank you for that and representing 318 and bringing some good information forward as well. I attended the science fair as well. And the frozen hockey puck does go faster, as well as swimming with a swim cap. You can cut time off. I think it was 0.11 seconds. And I learned that one of my favorite candy bars is not the healthiest candy bar to eat, and it's one that has that peanut butter and chocolate inside. I won't say what kind, but
Snickers? Or is it the Reese's?
no.
Reese's are good, man. I feel you.
But congratulations, Dan, to you and your staff for that. It was really interesting in how they went through their process and how they came up with their conclusion. One disappointing note, and I shared with Dan and actually shared with 2 of the students that did this, they reached out to 10 U.S. senators in the United States. And they didn't get into the detail what the question was asked. They emailed, and they only had 1 response. And it was a canned response. That was disappointing to me as elected officials. You know, we sit here on a school board, whether it's school, city, county, and I think we are more responsive to our constituents. At least that was my conclusion, visiting with the 2 students that did this. It was disheartening to me, to say the least. And I reached out to our 2 senators and waiting for a response back. I want them to reach out to these 2 students and show them that it does work, right? When a constituent steps forward and asks a question, there should be a response to it, especially at a young age, right? That's how you get them involved and how you learn from the young people. We as older, I think we're solving problems. If they're problems that affect the younger, they should be at the table help solving those problems. So it was a little disheartening, but lesson learned, right? So, but again, I well put together, Dan, and thank you to your staff and all the students that participated in that. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
I also attended the School Board Association, and I've heard most of the sessions discussed here already, although I did attend the Minnesota State High School League update, and it is incredible the impact on the huge number of kids in the state. But other than that, I think most of the sessions have been covered. Superintendent's report, Matt?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just a note and to piggyback a little bit on what David said, when I am at the conference, one of the common questions that superintendents ask each other is, how many members of your board are down? And I didn't run into another superintendent that had their full board there. And this isn't a one-off for this board. And so it is something I hope our community recognizes and appreciates, that our board is engaged in learning. And so thank you for that. We were able to present, and that was great, not because we had all the answers. And I was clear at the beginning of it, not like, if you're looking for all the answers on how to do this, you're in the wrong session. This is what we're learning, and our foibles and flaws and all the things, and what we're trying to do. So I think it was good, and it, like a lot of times, you learn a lot in the course of presenting. So it was good for our team. This is Educational Support Professional Recognition Week, and I think it's a good time and good that we had a meeting tonight just to highlight that. Governor Tim Walz has identified this week and declared this week in recognition of that and proclaimed that there's over 20,000 paraprofessionals in our state, and they support students in activities. They support students in the classroom, lunchroom, bus, just about everywhere you can imagine. And our system doesn't work at all without our awesome ESPs. So want to just mention that. Wanted to touch base on goals that have been set for the year and maybe just whip through those. We have a goal around our strategic plan, and we have a meeting on Wednesday to dive into that. My goal has been to get a draft or have a draft complete by the end of this month, get you a look at that draft, since we don't have a meeting, I guess, next week, but at our first February meeting, and then the goal's been to have that approved by the end of February. So I think that's going to be tight, but I think we're going to make it. We other goals in stewardship of resources were around finance, and we're making progress on those. One of those has to do with initiating negotiations, and some negotiations are going to be starting on Thursday this week. And so I think that's probably as early as they've started in a while, but it's really, really important for us to be informed as we make decisions this spring, to have as many of those processes going as possible. And we're going to be reaching out to the other groups too to see if they're willing to start early, even if we're just talking about language, to get those processes going, knowing that legislation is out there. And there's I think maybe a need or want to wait for that, but really the sooner we can get started, the sooner we can wrap that up, the better information we'll have with respect to some really, really important decisions. Facilities, Murphy in the admin building, being not in our ownership anymore. Murphy, obviously, we've completed that one. Southwest, if you haven't been by there, the portables are gone, or they're taken apart. I don't know if they're all the way gone, Mark, but the last time I drove by, they were on trailers and are headed out of there. So they're at least taken apart. So there's some work underway at Southwest. So that's great. And again, goal of that project is to be able to vacate this building, consolidate programs, and eliminate operational costs and maintenance costs for the school district and save the district some money. So that was part of the plan, and the board's executing on that plan. In partnerships and collaboration, there were goals around working not only with Nashwauk, but with our other ISD partners, and those goals are underway as well. And then finally, communications. So still a lot of work to do in that area. But we do, I mentioned, I think in an earlier session, we have some time set up tomorrow to take some highlights from this meeting and pump that out too. So making progress. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Meeting announcements. Upcoming board committee meetings are posted on each agenda. School board meeting agendas can be found in the district website and on the designated posting site at ISD 318 admin building. Is there any other business to come before the board? Julie, do we have any more public input? Meeting's adjourned.
Mr. Chair, thank you.